The silver spoon slipped from the old woman's trembling fingers and struck the floor with a sharp metallic sound. Everyone in the dining room froze. For 3 months, the servants had watched her push away every meal, her once bright eyes growing duller as her body weakened. Doctors had warned her wealthy son that she was slowly starving herself, but nothing could make her eat. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, a newly hired cook placed a simple plate of dinner in front of her, and something happened that no one in that mansion had witnessed in months. The elderly woman looked at the food, lifted her head, and whispered a name that made the new cook go completely pale. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one caring person to change a life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We would love to know how far this story of kindness reaches. The old woman was named Beatrice Holloway, and at 82 years old, she lived inside a mansion so large that her footsteps before they reached the walls. Her only son, Gideon Holloway, was a self-made millionaire who owned hotels, restaurants, and several apartment buildings across the city. From the outside, the Holloways appeared to have everything money could buy. But inside that beautiful house, Beatrice was quietly disappearing. After her husband died, she had lost interest in almost everything. Food became meaningless. She refused breakfast, touched nothing at lunch, and at dinner she would stare silently at her plate before asking the servants to take it away. Doctors examined her repeatedly and found no serious physical illness. They told Gideon that his mother needed something medicine could not prescribe, a reason to want tomorrow. Gideon tried everything. He hired private nurses, brought in expensive chefs, ordered meals from famous restaurants, and even flew in a nutrition specialist from another state. Nothing worked. Every untouched plate seemed to break his heart a little more. Yet Gideon was rarely home. His business demanded long hours, and somewhere along the way, he had convinced himself that providing everything financially was the same as being present. He loved his mother deeply, but he had forgotten the simple things she had once given him freely: time, patience, and the feeling that someone was listening. Then came Maribel Cruz, a 46-year-old woman who had recently been hired as the household cook. Unlike the previous chefs, Maribel did not begin by asking what expensive ingredients Beatrice preferred. She quietly watched her. On her first morning, she noticed an old photograph beside Beatrice's chair. It showed a younger Beatrice standing beside a small kitchen table holding a bowl of soup while a little boy smiled beside her. Maribel recognized something in the photograph that the others had missed. Beatrice was not smiling because of the food. She was smiling because she had made it for someone she loved. That evening, Maribel ignored the mansion's expensive kitchen and prepared something simple. She made chicken soup with carrots, potatoes, celery, and a little rosemary. She baked soft bread and spread butter across the top while it was still warm. Then she placed everything on a plain white plate and carried it to Beatrice herself. The old woman looked at the meal without interest. But Maribel did not pressure her. She simply sat nearby and began eating a small bowl herself. Minutes passed. Then Beatrice looked at the soup. Her eyes narrowed as though she were searching through a distant memory. She lifted the spoon, took the smallest sip, and suddenly stopped breathing for a moment. Tears gathered in her eyes. She looked directly at Maribel and whispered, "How did you know?" Maribel lowered her eyes and explained that her grandmother had once cooked the same soup whenever someone in the family was sick or heartbroken. Beatrice stared at her for several seconds before taking another spoonful. Then another. By the time Gideon arrived home unexpectedly, his mother had eaten nearly half the bowl. He stood in the doorway, stunned. For the first time in months, Beatrice was eating. But the real surprise came when she reached for Maribel's hand. She told her son that the soup tasted like the kitchen from his childhood, back when his father was still alive and Gideon was a little boy who would sit at the table waiting for dinner. She admitted that she had stopped eating because every meal reminded her that those days were gone. She wasn't hungry for food. She was hungry for the feeling of being needed again. Gideon sat beside his mother, tears running silently down his face. He finally understood what all his money had failed to teach him. His mother had never needed another luxury. She needed someone to sit beside her. From that night forward, Gideon changed. He began coming home earlier. He ate dinner with Beatrice instead of taking business calls at the table. Maribel continued cooking, but eventually the meals became something more than food. They became family rituals. Beatrice slowly regained her strength, began walking through the garden again, and even laughed more often. Months later, Gideon offered Maribel a generous raise and asked her what she wanted. She simply smiled and said she wanted the family to keep eating together. That answer stayed with him. Because Maribel had not saved Beatrice with expensive medicine or some miracle recipe. She had saved her with something far more powerful: attention, patience, and kindness. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may need to hear this message, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more stories that remind us that small acts of compassion can change everything. And before we end, comment: kindness still matters if you believe that sometimes the smallest gesture can give someone a reason to keep going. Because sometimes a person doesn't need the world to give them everything. Sometimes they only need one person to sit beside them and care.